what you were talking about.
Yeah, that does sound gay what you were talking about. What you think about this music, though?
We gonna get Popeyes and fuck, and we gonna call it chicken and dickin'.
This music?
Yeah, it's right here.
Are you watching like a video? It's like showing a new car.
No, so that's nice though. That's not bad. That's not a bad brain association game, you know?
Yeah, like is there like an accompanying video that is in this, or is this related to the song? Is the video
in the video that's playing is what's playing on NBC with everyone and the feed from Kansas City.
Football stream? This is a football stream, and this is the song during the halftime or something?
Yeah, this, and the person that's putting it on in the very top right corner, like the size of your thumbnail, is a little white cat.
Yeah.
And he's just jamming away.
Yeah,
That little cat man is just jamming away. Yeah, that's what he's doing right now, man. There's a rain delay of some sort. Severe weather.
Oh.
Seek shelter. They had to get up out of their seats and go to the concourses. Cat's ripping again on some other shit. Who's here? Fly, are you here?
Yeah, we in this.
Stu, you ready?
Yep.
You ain't ready. For real ready, Stu?
Yep.
Man, this cat is getting it though, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna turn that down.
Songs are okay, it's not my style. I don't like when it's just like repeats and repeats. You know, I like a lot of that, you know, electro dance, you know.
Word. You're into that sort of shit.
Yeah, I just love it. I go crazy for it.
One of the gays. Yes. Very much one of the gays, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the gays. Hi.
Hi. Damn, now they're putting it on us. We're down 9-6. We got Greenkey in the game with one out in the fourth. What the fuck? He's so weird. He's out there. He's fucking enjoying coming in as relief. It's something new and totally different for him, and he's fucking so excited about it. He is throwing his little fucking heart out there. I see him. This might be some crazy ass fucking newborn. Yeah.
Didn't he pitch in that series already?
No. He's a starter. He did not start today's game.
I wonder why.
Get yourself to proper warm-up. We'll be deploying soon.
He came in the fourth. That's a pretty gnarly little movement going on with the ball.
Enemy dropping into the AO.
You know how like he's a weird guy?
Yeah.
Probably getting off of coming in a relief and something that's different and out of the norm.
Okay.
That's enough fucking about. Now we do this for real.
Damn.
Battle Royale. Mark a drop point
Nobody
for your
playing
team. You'll lead them
defense
in.
today.
You've got gas closing in fast. Get to the
Last
safe
game,
zone.
everybody was working on D. This game, nobody.
You don't need this. Hey, this vendor's got gear if you need it.
Hey, they fixed the map thing.
No. You can always see the buys.
I can see the ring. Oh, no,
Can
never
you?
mind.
You got one team hard diving in.
I got movement.
Pulling up and going over here.
I got movement.
That's where they're at. I'm pulling recon.
Move to the next area and secure the perimeter. Eliminate all targets in the AO. Enemy team is tracking your position.
Got a green MP5 in here if you want that. Blue.
I'm hit. I'm
Got a
hit.
Simtex on the second floor over here, the purple AS. You can get some ass.
This is the Gulag. Survive and
gun's
you can
hot.
redeploy.
Daddy on the third floor up here.
There's a fight kicking off. You can always have a go at these bastards while you're waiting. Give them some choice wood. Smash their mugs with a well-placed stone.
We know we got guys up here.
There's a fight kicking off.
He
Get
died
ready
right
to
there?
fight. You're
I
next.
thought he died at the recon.
No.
Well, we know we got people at the recon. I marked that for sure, and that door's open. I say we bail on the recon and rotate right and hit this little area. See,
Win this
look, they're
fight and
fighting
you
a
return
team
to
on
the
the
front
recon.
line. But if you lose, you're done here.
Are you in a situation where
earn
you're
your
ready to
freedom,
rock and roll
soldier.
like that, or what?
No, not really.
Okay, so let's loot together, stay tight. You know, if you get that one, I'll hit this one. Maybe I get like this one. Yeah. I got an ammo box.
Looking a little worse for wear. You're heading back to base. Your team can still buy you back if they have the cash.
I got an armor box. Got a buy station in front of us or behind us.
Marking buy station. Marking buy station.
Do we have enough for him? Yeah, we go to this one over here to the west. Here, take the money.
Somebody about to load it. That was close. I think that was.
Yeah, like our recon area.
Either there or yeah, I think so.
Coming all the way back, yep. Coming all the way back in here. There's some looting.
Somebody here. Oh, down.
I don't have a beat or anything.
Friendly UAV overhead.
Okay, that's the strength coming up right there, Solo. Hey, we don't need to push that. We don't need to push that. We can rotate the other direction, loot, and get guns. Fly, you're the only one trying to challenge that, and you just got bought back. You don't have anything.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Everyone's in the safe
Not gonna
zone.
hurt to get some stuff together. Like some ammo to fight. Money to buy a loadout.
Contract failed. Let's sharpen up. Positive ID on the bounty target. Sort them out.
Kept thinking about. You want to rotate over there and push that guy? Is that what y'all are thinking about?
It's full squad.
Alright.
Mark out, I'm going.
I mean, really. Well, wait. Before we cross this wide open, the odds are pretty high we're gonna have to come right back this direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we gotta find shit though.
For sure, we gotta find some shit. So let's go a different direction. Yeah, let's go up this way and loot. Towards train station, I'm down with that. Fly's back.
What happened?
Oh, what a fight.
I've been hearing y'all the whole time.
I know, but your
figured y'all
mic was
couldn't hear me.
muted. So
No, it wasn't even
we didn't-
looted. It was the motherfucker wasn't even plugged in. Shit retarded.
Oh, well, we didn't hear any echo, so we knew you weren't here.
Oh, I'm still echoing. I thought.
I don't think I had that if they wanted.
Tagging assault rifle.
We got enough for our loading?
That's right.
Oh shit.
So just to chase them away. Yep.
Nothing on the beat.
Enemy UAV overhead.
I can't hold that.
Got some armor here.
Advanced UAV. We're in smoke. Got a loadout drop inbound.
Did anybody grab that other box?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Got a loadout drop inbound.
Everybody full on
Gas
plates?
is inbound. Marking new safe zone.
I got
We're out of time.
There's one on the
Scrub
third
the
story
contract.
of this building.
I'm moving.
I'm gonna grab that recon.
There's two of them right here on me.
Got some armor here.
Enemy
Armor
dropping
here.
into the AO. Move to the next area and secure the perimeter.
Is that a solo or what?
it. Someone dropped in.
In front of me?
Two boxes.
One down. He's coming from left to right. He's going back to his team to the right. I'm gonna rotate over to get the loadout. Another one down here.
I got movement.
Ah, puta verga, güey.
AR on the ground.
Mid cal over here.
Ammo box here.
I have one in my pocket.
I have a feeling that change.
Gas is moving.
I have a feeling
Let's
like,
take
yeah,
it.
fuck him. Get my bag, though.
Located on.
Get this like Last Supper.
Contract complete. Recon intel secured.
Inside the zone.
Fly here. Selfie?
Supply choppers inbound.
Maybe a cluster or
Rear cargo
something?
is on board.
Beats clear. Means nothing, but beats clear. I'll grab the bounty.
There's a loadout right here.
Marking waypoint coordinates.
Bounty target has been marked. Kill him.
Marking waypoint coordinates.
Enemy UAV
Hostile
overhead.
in the
Got
open.
him over here. Seen him walking that building. Second floor.
Moving up here.
Popped him once.
Downed him.
Where'd you down him at? What window?
Second floor.
What window?
Second floor. Second floor of that building we were shooting
The
at.
right one or the left one, Stu? No shit, we
Left
were
one.
shooting at it. Jesus Christ, man. How is that hard?
Out to the right.
How is that hard, Stu? He came out the back running away. Popped him.
I got movement.
In that brown house or behind
I
it.
got movement.
Somebody's on mute, no, that's you. You want behind that far one?
I got movement.
It's behind that one back there.
I got movement.
Bounty's still over there though in that building.
Damn, his teammate
Coordinates
rolled the
marked.
fuck out of
Bad
him.
guy. Front.
That's gonna go down right by the bounty. It's gonna make him. Oh, you have an excellent view on that, don't you, Fly? You son of a bitch.
Yeah, a couple of gas here. They're pretty far from
Oh, no, not that. The plane that just went down behind you. You haven't even seen it yet.
the supply a little bit. It's behind the wall.
Hostile op.
I'm on a board right back here.
Positive contact. This one's mine. Disregard.
Fire here.
Receiving hostile fire.
That's the supply, Bill.
Hostile fire.
Looking up.
You have to be careful. Fuck, let me over.
We're at that supply crate. I think they're getting fucked
Yeah,
up.
we need to move. Because we need to get money.
Friendly UAV overhead.
See a vehicle close.
Marking rendezvous vehicle.
Can you get to that?
Yep. Got a squad. Looks like they're pushing in towards us. Right here.
Make for target location.
There's a guy on the car. He's in the air.
I'll take the wheel.
Pick me up right at your blue marker.
building?
Everyone's in the safe zone.
Move to the next area and secure the perimeter.
Launching rocket.
What do we need from this buy station?
Launching rocket.
Yeah, but I can't get that for cheap. What can I get for cheap? I can get a UAV for 600, 800. I can get an armor box for 12. Do we need an armor box? Yeah, somebody come get this ammo box I'm about to shit out right here. You want to save the money for a loadout? Is that what you're saying, Fly?
I'm gonna go try to get my stuff. So.
Okay. Then I'm gonna save the money and save the buy and have it. Bank it. Is that recon out of the question, Stu?
Move a spot. Hostile operator.
Alright, so now that I've saved that, I can buy you back with it for free. Maybe we'll stick together this time.
Fly back?
Well, it was free this time. For me.
Oh, this is
Yeah. Here we go. Maybe you can stay here.
Got contact.
Come up below us, Stu? What do you mean?
South.
West.
They got the extraction.
Oh, I see the extraction out there. Nobody's going for it. Did they get it already?
I think so.
I think they did.
They got no other opposition there.
Okay, I wish I would have seen that. Where are you at, Fly?
I'm in the middle of trouble.
Somebody got bought back up here in front of us too.
Head
Right
this
there.
way. I got movement. Mark out. I'm going. Cancel that. Mark out. I'm going.
There's one on
Cancel
that
that. I
hill
got
there, but there
movement.
is one closer. He moved from left to right. Going over there to where the contraband was one at. I think that direction. Flies taking people out. I don't even know where he's at. I feel all kinds of exposed up here.
Gas is moving in. New safe zone located.
Tree. Hey,
Going
tree.
for that box.
Lethal out.
Yeah, and it's on this side. Oh, it's on that side of the wall. Fuck. Hold down the fucking buy. Okay.
UAV overhead.
Okay, actual. Have eyes on A station.
The team's fighting on pool. You guys go.
There's gonna be a loadout here, and
Move on my waypoint. We're inside this. Get ready for incoming.
I'm grabbing a cluster here, Stu. Grab something with that. AR and no, just AR. I'm sorry.
Friendly UAV overhead.
They're moving left.
Contract failed. Let's sharpen up.
Coming in. Coming in.
Yeah, I got him right here.
They're not in.
I had the wrong gun. Fuck. There's another one back here by our loadout. No, he ran away.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Man, I need.
Watch your left side.
Armor box.
Taking fire here.
Yeah.
Don't come get me. I'm not safe.
What What the fuck, guys?
He's shooting at
Hostile in the
exploding
open.
arrows.
Right here.
One of y'all has a selfie?
Hostile operator.
Allied cluster strike inbound.
Two of them at least.
Fuck, I didn't know it was that close. Damn.
Damn, Stu. He fucked you up.
Remaining. Nicely done.
Beat up? That's terrible. I hate hearing.
Hey, are you back, Fire?
I think Fire left the party.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited to be here tonight to show you guys that I'm so much more than just a pretty face.
I think we'll call it.
And good hair.
What?
And great.
I'm gonna call it. Just chat for a little bit. Fucking drove here, man. Every time I fucking plays the game, I gotta fucking get up and do something with the dogs. Mid-game, every
Really?
fucking time. Yes.
You ain't got shit to do tomorrow, man.
It's like you're the doggy daddy or something.
Like, fuck.
Transportation industry lobbyists and a few CEOs have been lighting up the White House. They want to talk to Biden about the mandates.
Cool.
Didn't hear about any issues in New Hampshire. Seismic earthquake-like event.
Can't say I have.
Somebody was sharing some information about how they say in 2018 they said a super volcano is brewing under Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire.
Wow.
Centered under
I wonder if that would affect
Vermont,
me personally.
with parts of western New Hampshire and western Massachusetts within its embrace. Quote, it's not Yellowstone-like, but it's a distant relative. It's a magma bubble of some sort.
Magma?
Magma. Liquid hot.
Tactical Meow, AK-47.
The audience can't rate the Fauci documentary on Rotten Tomatoes.
Classic. That Poseidon QBZ is nice. Oh, body. That's hot. Yeah.
The union that represents the pilots for American Airlines warned American Airlines that they could face a staffing shortage ahead of the busy holiday travel season if it implements a stringent COVID-19 vaccine mandate.
They might go out of business.
Somebody said we should do the Day of the Unvaccinated where we all just call out a sick. Just the unvaccinated people, and we'll see.
Every fucking thing that people come up with is like, let's stay home from work.
Yeah, it is.
Like, that's cool, like if you work for like a big company, but it's kind of fucked up if you're just working for a little guy, you know?
Yeah. I don't pay attention to any other holidays either. I wouldn't pay attention to that one. You know what I mean, Vern?
Renegade.
Renegade. Operation Renegade. Are they still on weather delay there? Yeah. That's crazy. Rick and Morty it is.
Is that football?
Huh?
Is that the Chiefs game?
Yeah, it's still delayed.
Damn.
Alright, boys. I'll be on tomorrow night.
Alright, stupid.
Alright, man. Later, dude.
pirates. Large building-sized blocks fall from volcano on La Palma.
Yeah.
If we are able to extract what we need from the Ancient's artifact, I begin to hope we can fight the corruption when it comes.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I've got another very important AMC update to bring all of you this afternoon. So what we're going to be covering in this update is we're going to be taking a look at the Ortex data and the price action that we've been seeing on AMC over the last trading week and try to figure out where we can see a couple of these numbers go over the course of the next couple of weeks and how that is going to affect us as AMC shareholders. Now, we talked a little bit about the option change in yesterday's video in terms of how this monthly options expiration date is slightly different than any of the other ones that we have seen, but we didn't really go over the specific price levels to where we could see a significant amount of delta hedging, so we're going to go over that as well. We have some real good fundamental news to talk about with AMC.
Checking them out later, dude.
Have a really important event coming up where it's kind of going into the wild west. We know what happened with AMC's last earnings when Adam Aaron announced that Say platform. He announced some really good things in the earnings call, and I think there is going to be a lot of good uncertainty going into the earnings call that it should be happening in the very beginning of November. And in addition to this, we're going to be going over something towards the end of this video that I think a lot of people are confused on, are interested in, or just really want to learn more about, and that is going to be this concept of computer share. Now, this is going to tie in to a lot of what we have been seeing over the last couple of months, especially since June.
I assure you, I certain one thing living for centuries teaches you is that people are capable of...
That was going to set off the squeeze, and that was going to be that. We were all going to make a bunch of money, but that is not actually what ended up happening. As you all know, we closed the after-hours trading period on Friday at $37.38, pretty far off from the all-time highs of $77 a share. Now, there's been a lot of talk about catalysts, and we all like to talk about these catalysts, especially the fundamental ones and some of the more speculative short squeeze catalysts and how they are going to affect us. But again, if you guys have been watching any of my videos over the last couple of months, especially pertaining to these proposed rule changes, in my opinion, there's not really going to be one specific thing that is going to be setting off this massive squeeze. It is going to be a culmination of events coming together, working in concert, that is going to basically force the over-leveraged shorts' hands into covering these short positions. But we are going to go over how computer share is beneficial to us and address some of the uncertainties that are surrounding this type of platform. So before we get into all of that information, if you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provide for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. So when we come over to the Ortex data right here, again, short interest still very, very high, slightly off of the all-time highs that we saw above 21%, but 20.28% is still very, very significant. Remember, I really want to keep hammering this point home that the estimated short interest as a percentage of the free flow when we ran from about $10 a share all the way up to 77 was in that 16 to 17% range that we are seeing right here. At the current time, we are hanging out and consolidating at a much higher price with a significant amount of higher short interest, meaning that this next price run-up that we are going to see, whenever it may come, is most likely going to be a lot more aggressive. Now, I know a lot of people really understand the concept of a gamma squeeze right now, but remember, the key thing that we need to think about going into this week is that there isn't a fully built out option chain. It only goes out to this $95 strike here, and that leads to the possibility of a lot more concentration on the option chain. So let's take a look at where this concentration is at the current time, and most likely we are going to see this open interest continually go up throughout the remainder of this next trading week. So we have $40 and $41 a share, a little bit at 42. So you're going to see a theme that they're kind of blocked off in strikes and price levels of threes. So we can see 40 through 42 has a decent amount of contracts, and then we see 45 right here, 44 has a decent amount, so 45 through 47 has another decent amount of contracts. But again, since people aren't going to be able to be gambling on those deep out of the money options this week, we are going to see some more heavy concentration. Now, here's where we're going to get into AMC's earnings call. So we haven't gotten a specific set in stone date yet, but usually these reports, when they come out with these estimated dates, are usually within a week before or a week after when we would see the actual earnings call happen. Last time that AMC reported their earnings, when we all left that call, we were all incredibly excited about what was said by Adam Aron. He said a lot of bullish things about the fundamentals of the company, potential partnerships, and where he wants this company to head in the future. And there were a lot of wild cards that were kind of thrown at us that we didn't necessarily expect, especially that Say platform where we all got to ask questions and we got a little bit of insight into the potential of how many synthetic or counterfeit shares could be out in the market at the current time. Now, what's going to happen with this one? We don't really know yet, but I'm very excited to see what Adam Aron pulls out of his toolbox to really show us and excite the retail investor movement going forward after this call happens. Now, moving on to some very quick fundamentals. I know a lot of people don't really care about the fundamentals of AMC at the current time in terms of the short squeeze play. Now, we've been over this in the past. We're not going to harp on that point any longer, but No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final Bond film, opens to $56 million at the domestic box office. Now, the estimates and the projections were that Bond was going to do about $60 million, so about $4 million off. That's not really a bad sign, because what we have to think about as well is that Venom is still pumping in the theaters at the current time. We have multiple movies doing really well, so they are going to be competing with each other. But overall, the box office numbers have been very strong recently. So let's get into this computer share situation. So the main thing that you have to realize about computer share is it gives you actual ownership of your shares. Right now, if you are not on computer share, your shares are essentially being held in the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. So there's been a lot of conversations about the lending of shares. Now, how this works in terms of what we are dealing with on these brokerage platforms is that we are getting a fancy IOU from these brokers, and the actual shares are being held in the DTCC. Now, when you turn off share lending, your shares shouldn't really be able to get lent out and basically used against your position in your actual account. But I have seen firsthand with other positions in the past that I had a cash account and somehow I was receiving interest on my shares being loaned out. It didn't really make a lot of sense. It is possible that that pool of shares in the DTCC is being loaned out consistently, which is why we can see these situations keep happening where stocks get over-shorted. They can basically spoof their short interest to make it look like the short interest isn't as high as it actually is and over-short these companies into the ground, and computer share really does get around this. Now, what a lot of people are really worried about with this, the main concern is the ability to sell. So we have this Q&A section right here, and we're going to go over something else as well. So can I buy or sell my securities through computer share? As a transfer agent, it is not within our capacity to purchase or sell securities on behalf of an investor. We suggest that you contact your investment dealer to trade your securities and manage your investment portfolio. But when we come over here, this is another kind of FAQ section from computer share. How do I sell shares? You may sell all or a portion of the whole shares of stock in your CIP account at any time. But here's the thing. they only have a market order or a batch order system. So the batch order, it could take 5 business days to actually settle. The market order should be relatively instantaneous. But we've talked about the risks of using market orders, especially in the times of a squeeze scenario. The price is going to be incredibly volatile, and it is slightly more risky to use the market order versus the limit order when you are trying to sell. And nobody is really thinking about selling right now, in my opinion. The people who are really hardcore into this community are really not thinking about selling their position until the shorts cover. So this market order function could potentially have some adverse effects in terms of the actual fill price that you would be getting, but you still would be able to sell. So when thinking about this whole computer share situation and directly registering your shares and how it could potentially lead to some sort of pressure getting put on these institutions, I really want to give you guys my own personal opinions on this. For me, I am very, very neutral on this whole situation. If you guys want to go out, directly register your shares, get that actual ownership in your name on your shares, potentially expose the counterfeits and synthetics, and potentially basically prevent your shares from getting used against you when they shouldn't be in the first place, by all means, go for it. But if you don't want to and you see that there's some other risks that you are just not comfortable taking, then don't. It is perfectly fine. But what I do not want to see is all of this infighting in the community and people taking jabs at each other over this situation. Again, in my mind, there really isn't going to be any one thing that is going to be
reports, and we're going to have many more exciting shows for you and some events even coming up here as we get to the end of the year. So we'll be back on Friday. And the guys with Hemingway, which was absolutely ridiculous, cosmic snapshot of what's going on, which can be very valuable and inform all kinds of sort of down-to-earth deductions on the nature of the situation. Of course, we'll be doing many shows on the kind of State of the Union side. Okay.
Suffered from what phobia?
Also, in the second half of the program, we're going to be taking your questions, and Miss Olivia is going to be putting those together. You can ask those questions now. They're in the ideas room. It's great to see everyone. How's the temperature out there?
Good. I think people are excited that we have a show tonight on 1010, and this is X Series number 110, right?
Yes, This is the Grand Confluence. And that was purely accidental, but quite significant, I think. There's also an interesting thing, I would say, in general, when we get into October, it's naturally open. This is why Halloween is there. When you get into that fall period, you're looking at a kind of esoteric overlay.
That's true.
It's like these things open up. And supposedly the original reason that we have Halloween is because that is the date that Atlantis sank, the final destruction of Atlantis. Yes, so that's the echo back there in the past. We're going to deal with a few echoes tonight. The first one I want to deal with is the death ray. And the death ray is something that comes up in Casey's work when he's describing a meeting that takes place in Atlantis. And he gives the date, which is rare in the Casey readings, when he's talking about Atlantis going back through that Akashic history. And of course, Edgar Casey was the incredible sleeping prophet psychic who gave readings over a course of 40 years with incredible accuracy, and largely gave medical readings, but thank God that mixed in with all those medical readings are very significant esoteric in what they call life readings, where he would go into the past lives of individuals, and many of them had been involved. Some of the greatest people in the world came to Casey for readings, including Tesla and that's Woodrow Wilson. But they were looking at a kind of technological past that was bringing them back in touch with it. The inventor of FM radio came to Casey. So we have a number of people who were from these periods of time in Atlantis with the high technology, including Casey's own son, Edgar Evans Casey, who I had the pleasure to meet, who really was a remarkable person in that in his 90s he looked like a guy easily in his 60s, I would say. So he took the readings to heart. But he was a mechanical engineer and had been instructed in a in a Casey reading, which they had kept hidden for a long time. I think they let most of it out now, but he was basically one of the people who pulled the pin back there in Atlantean times, and he was known as the dreaded one of Atlantean periods. If you think about that, that's quite remarkable. This is like somebody who pressed the nuclear button. So this was quite a karma for him to live down. He came back incredibly brilliant, and those readings instructed Edgar Evans not to use that scientific knowledge for the military. And in fact, the military came calling, even in his late 20s, to use his scientific expertise, and he turned him down flat and just stuck to kind of civic engineering. A remarkable story, and he wrote one of my favorite books, which is a collection of Casey readings called Edgar Casey on Atlantis. This book was released in 1968, and is the greatest sort of foundation for giving us a snapshot of what that was all about. And it caused a bit of a craze there among 60s people who were really kind of opening up to this esoteric mystical side of things. There was a lot of information coming out about psychic phenomena, reincarnation, and the rest. And I think that this forms a good backdrop because there was something rising there which got snuffed out by the time we got into the later 90s. But there's something quite fascinating too when you look at it. There were certain celebrities who were really into Edgar Casey. John Lennon became absolutely fascinated with Casey's predictions of Atlantis rising. And this brings us into an area and something about the title of the show, which is Amelia's in the Hot Zone, Raw-Ta Atlantis Secret. The Hot Zone, then, being something we identified on this program, which I originally got some information which had not been in the public domain before, which is that there's an area that stretches between the Yucatan and the coast of Florida and the Bimini and the western tip of Cuba. And that area, for certain private contractors and for groups like the military, or for groups who are doing mapping of the ocean floors, etc., they refer to it internally as the hot zone. Now, the hot zone is an area that when they see things that are large structures that are archaeological in nature, if they see an Atlantean temple or an Egyptian temple down there, they have to sign NDAs saying we're not going to reveal any of that. In the case of the military, you can actually get court-martialed. When I went around with this information to various people who are pretty well known for their research along the lines of ancient civilizations and asked them, have you heard of this hot zone before? They had heard of it in one variety or another, but it was not unfamiliar to them. It was definitely a knowledge that something was referred to as the hot zone in this area. And the more research I did on it, of course, there's a whole series here on the channel about Hemingway and all of the things that he was doing in the hot zone, and how so much of his being in Bimini and Cuba was all about these searches. And they had it under the guise with Hemingway, which was absolutely ridiculous, that he was looking for Nazi U-boats. Now, the ship that he was out there was equipped with scientific cameras, no guns, nothing. So if you came across a U-boat, you'd be sunk in the water. And so that's a real joke when they say that. He went on those missions endlessly and was always scanning the bottom of that floor. And I believe that a number of things that we found about Ernest and the fact that JFK had to smuggle so many of the things that were in his vault is very indicative of the type of deep research that he was doing. In fact, JFK, as we found out, risked an international incident in order to get his stuff out at the behest of Mary Hemingway, his widow, who showed up at the White House and said, we got to do something about this, and there's a picture of them moving. In fact, of course, all of Ernest's effects and his legacy will be vouchsafed there at JFK Library through Jackie Kennedy, and it's still there. And there's a number of letters and things that you can go there and read, but you can't make photocopies or anything like that. There's only a certain amount of things that you can do with it. The hot zone There's also a number of intelligence people who have come out, British intelligence mostly, who were interested in Atlantis and came out and said, well, you know, in fact, there's a number of countries that are looking for this. Egerton Sykes was major on this, largely ignored figure in Atlantis Circle, probably the most well-read, and his entire legacy was bought up at the end of his life by the ARE, but they just really didn't do anything with it. Luckily, I was able to obtain his entire legacy of his Atlantis journals digitally, and they are quite remarkable. I think I actually have one here. This is how they used to come out. They were just these little journals of research from like 1975, and they go from 1955 to 1980, and they're full of some of the most remarkable information, and I try to share as much of Egerton Sykes' work as possible. One of the key things he said is, look, Russia's involved in the Hudson, China's involved in the Hudson, Venezuela's involved in the Hudson, America's involved in the Hudson. They're all there, and there's a number of things that they're studying, including the mid-currents, but the big key were these ancient ruins. And we find so many fascinating people. We did an episode here, which was X100, which was Ghislaine in the hot zone. And this is Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein and their oceanography projects to save the world, supposedly. Not at all. They were studying these ruins as well, and they were bringing big wig scientists like Stephen Hawking and all the rest of it down there to look at these things. And this is because there's a number of ruins that are becoming visible now. Casey had originally said that the ruins, as they rise, would be most visible at Bimini. And he predicted in 1960, for 1968, he made the prediction, I think, for 1940, that we'd start to see the beginning of it. And in fact, they found Bimini Road during this period, fulfilling something that he had just made a snapshot of in his mind there 28 years earlier. But he said that that area was called Poseidon, and that it was the most dominant island, and it's where the Semelius group was. Now, that whole area sank. The only thing left above water now is that western tip of Cuba and Bimini, some of the Bahamas, and the peninsula around the Yucatan. So that's where we are with it. One of the things that Egerton Sykes, the intelligence agent I just referenced, put on the record back in the 1970s was that there's a large ISIS temple sunk in the Bahamas, which 3 countries know about, have photos of, and all the rest of it. So there's a big competition going on about these underwater ruins, and then you have to ask yourself, why? Why are they so desperately trying to be the first ones to get their hands on this material? It's very much like the UFO disclosure piece as well, and I would actually submit that because we're dealing here with the human origin story, and because we're dealing with advanced technology in an advanced ancient civilization, it's actually more important than disclosure. And, you know, the alien thing, there's so much misinformation around it in any case. Although certainly there are off-world civilizations visiting here. It's very obvious, but largely misinterpreted and largely, you know, they put out a kind of a threat meme, as we've done many shows on this, through the Central Intelligence Agency. And we have real big problems with the CIA when it comes to the esoteric subjects, and also when it comes to things like UFOs, because they have their own agenda about how to portray these things and how to, you know, just like they're making the injection, you know, it's like worship the injection. They have their own ideas about how to do an alien invasion op, for example. So when we go back to this death ray idea, now Casey's giving this reading, and they actually ask him, when did this meeting take place? Because he talks about these groups in Atlantis meeting scientifically to figure out how to use this death ray to eliminate these large beasts. Now, which were overrunning everything, It sounds very much, as I've pointed out, like dinosaurs. And there's a real big problem here because in traditional history, we're told that the dinosaurs were eliminated 65 million years ago by a comet blast or something of that nature. Doesn't add up with history at all. There's a pretty big gap between the 50,000 BC date that Casey gives for getting rid of the dinosaurs with this death ray at 65 million years. You have to wonder about this. I've told on this program many times, I've told the story of Carnegie and his absolute obsession with dinosaur ruins. We've seen the whole Jurassic Park thing about reanimating these things. There's a lot of strange secrets around the entire dinosaur piece.
Can I throw you a question?
Yes.
Okay, so AM says, I find it interesting how in the Casey readings, the Belial group were trying to get rid of the dinosaurs, but really was to exert power. Is zero COVID the new dinosaurs?
Wow, isn't that great? Well, here's the thing. You make a really good point, which is what Casey says about them implementing this death ray to do this is that in the implementation, it's the equivalent of like early nuclear accidents. They had these accidents and they set off these volcanic eruptions. But I want to show how this idea of the death ray sort of was kept. It was vouchsafed by these mystery schools for a long time, and they kept it out of the hands of these countries, again, being able to use it because they had misused it so badly in Atlantis. So all this technology went underground, and it was very advanced technology. Let's read the actual quote from the reading on this. And again, this is Casey giving this reading, and it's in the 262 series. If you track those things, that's a good series. Question. Please advise me regarding the preparation and presentation of the article I'm preparing for the Great Congress held during the age of the destruction of the enormous animals that once roamed the earth. And Casey says, as to the manner to which these gathered, it was very much as would be were the Graf Zeppelin to start the various portions for those that represented, or were to gather those that were to counsel or to cooperate in that effort. And as this then was in that particular plane or sphere that then was in the land which has long since lost its identity, except in the inner thought or visions of those that have returned or are returning to the present sphere. Of course, it's referring to Atlantis here. The ways and means devised were as those that would alter or change the environment for which those beasts were needed, or that necessary for that sustenance in the particular portions of the sphere on Earth that they occupied. I read that as destroying their habitat, in fact. This was administered much in the same way or manner as were there sent out from various central plants that which is termed in the present the death ray, or the supercosmic ray. By the way, Tesla had submitted his plan for a death ray in 1927 as a way to combat the rising fascism. And this death ray that he's referring to is obviously in the zeitgeist at the time. That which many are seeking into, which will give their lives much from the stratosphere or cosmic rays that will be found in the next 25 years. Okay, the reading's 1930.
Well, I have an experiment in mind, but...
It's 25 years. This was 1958. And again, so many things happened in 58. Casey will repeatedly refer to this period, 58 to 98, as a testing period that we will go through to set up this kind of huge clash that we're seeing right now, where the materialism in the rising science is going right up there with the rise of human consciousness, and there's the clash of the scientific materialism with the rising spiritual consciousness, which is right where we are now, and they're trying to strangle that with this. Try to worship the science, which is not real science at all, of course. That's paid science. So then he's asked, what was the date, BC, of this gathering? And he says 50,722 BC. So it's a real snapshot that in this period, 50,000 BC, we're advanced enough on the Atlantean side to send out death rays to kill these dinosaurs. So, if we go back, I'm always fascinated about how the technology is lost and how it echoes itself through the legends and all the rest. One of the most fascinating, I think, around the Death Ray is Archimedes. And this is the story of the siege of this Greek city of Syracuse by the Romans, lasting from the spring of 213 BC, and this is all from the Britannica Encyclopedia, through the autumn of 212 BC. The brilliant Syracuse inventor and mathematician Archimedes, he lived from 287 to 212 BC. He developed a spectacular invention to keep the Roman ships at bay. He built a death ray using mirrors to concentrate the light of the sun on the Roman ships, thereby setting them on fire. Archimedes of Syracuse was, they go into kind of a history there, but the basic depiction of this thing, why I'm so interested in it, I think it's that leftover of the Atlantean technology, because he's using it to zap these ships, and it's clearly a laser ray. I think it's pretty obvious from this story that the echo of the Atlantean technology is still there. It's still active. There's still a way to access it. I saw some depictions of these dinosaurs dying from these rays also. This would be the Atlantean death ray weapon. I mean, you could probably look at that and say it's a comet, but I'm trying to give us the idea of how they would have exercised these things. So we have this 50,000, close to 50,000 years later, there's an echo of this technology. Somebody, some group, some mystery center, some mystery school has maintained that technology over time, and they're using it here for the invading Romans. There's another shot of that, and Archimedes using that incredible death ray to set those ships on fire. And they also talk about it, they call it science fire in the record. And we have to figure that out because they don't use the regular word for fire. They're basically saying it's a strange fire, like it's a chemical fire, in fact. There are other references to this tech, in fact, if you go into the record, and you'll see back there some of those battles, some of these guys are shooting fire in a way that's not just little fire throws. They've got some extra handy technology that the other groups aren't finding out about. So how these things are kept underground becomes kind of a foundation of steganography, which is what we cover here on the main show, after all, is the X-Steganography series.
She's all right.
So what is it that happens? It's basically we get up to a certain point in technology, and then after that destruction happens, as we're seeing it so much in the present, then the groups that have that technology hide it so that the next group that comes up won't have the access to that and then burn everything down again. This has to be understood. If you go and actually read The Secret Doctrine, you're going to find something very strange, and that's by H.P. Blavatsky. It was quite remarkable. It had two sections, one on science, one on theology, but it's a great breakthrough in esoteric literature, and it came out in 1888. But what Blavatsky does is she dedicates a whole chapter to John Keely, and she talks all about Keely and his technology. And you have to ask yourself, of course, Keely is like Tesla in that period. He's experimenting with these things I call X technology. But what's happening, in fact, is she and Rudolf Steiner start suggesting that the work that Keely is doing won't be brought to fruition because humanity's not ready for it. And in fact, what will happen with World War I is we'll take the technology that we have, flight and all the rest of it. We all saw how that ended. So what happens is when Keely is in fact killed. I mean, they say that he died of natural causes, but everything that I can see there in the middle of his research, he is in fact killed. And then there's a great rush to grab his technology at a warehouse in Boston. His partner ships it over to the UK before any of these kind of greedy corporations that are hanging around can get their hands on it. And then they try to put him on trial as fraud because, they're trying to blackmail him to get this technology back. what's discovered, if you go deep into the record, is that all of Keeley's technology went across the sea and landed at the Theosophical Society, which was headed up by Annie Besant. Besant was passed the torch by Blavatsky directly to her, and she led the Theosophical Society, and she is the one who started the German chapter that had Rudolf Steiner at its helm. And she basically, Steiner worked with her for 2 years, and so you could say that she oversaw his development. And she had a partner in theosophy named C.W. Ledbetter that Steiner didn't agree with because he thought
because he was a pervert.
I think it was much deeper than that, but yes, he definitely. I'm sure that's a big.
Steiner had very high standards.
I think what I was going to say there is, though, fundamentally there's an impatience that grows out of theosophy. It's almost like a panic, and then we have to bring on the world teacher. Now, Blavatsky predicted the world teacher, which is a big tenet in theosophy, but for the 21st century. So they were trying to jump the gun by 100 years by having Krishnamurti sort of host this world teacher. So there was quite a push there on the mystery side, and this was such, it involved so many important people. Gandhi was involved, of course Edison was a member of the Theosophical Society. That cream of the crop of the scientific community were all very interested in theosophy. I like that pervert. One of the key things I want to say also about the death ray idea is by the time we get back to Tesla proposing the death ray in 1927 and really trying to help, in the 30s, America by saying, look, you can utilize this thing and the Nazis won't mess with you. Is that technology, again, we're talking about steganography and the advanced technology. I call it X technology. So when we talk about that advanced X technology, it could be really obvious. It could be really misinterpreted that whenever I refer to that, it's about UFO technology, because the X technology resides in that UFO file for secrecy purposes. But the X technology existed long before there was a UFO file, and this is the other piece of it. I'm also going to introduce a couple of themes tonight, which is Casey talking about aliens, which is not very well reported on. In fact, a lot of the Casey information and the dissemination of that information focuses kind of heavily on the medical side and the idealism, which is good, but there's a huge background of esoteric information in the Casey work, and it's been Casey's name has been exploited. You always have these jokers coming out saying, I'm Edgar Casey reincarnated. We've seen them all, but the work has been exploited in many ways, and in fact I found out that only about a quarter of the readings have been put out in books. Of course, the organization has a high ethical standard and makes all the readings available. But in terms of what has actually made it into circulation from books that have been published, it's actually less than a quarter of the readings that he gave. Casey talked about Atlantis being a place where they had such technology as, they had planes that could fly through mountains. They had planes that could fly underwater and above ground, and they had something which seems like they could point anywhere in the universe and be there. So they did this all through something called the Two-Eye Stone, which is the power stations that they developed, and eventually this Belial group that the Amelius group was in competition with for leadership of Atlantis got the upper hand and started using this advanced two-eye technology, which sounds very much like a laser, a very advanced laser technology. In fact, there was a NASA scientist who was very interested in this, and in the 1970s he put out a series of diagrams based on the Casey readings of what this two-eye stone looked like and what it could do. And the spelling on it is Tuaoi, which is also very important. I want to point this out, that Casey put a number of things on the record which went kind of unexplored. You know, two-eye stone, the term just kind of hung out there until I researched it with Gigi Young. And two-eye has all kinds of, the Tuatha De Danann, for example. These other groups, they all have that TUA in there. And two-eye also meant the stone of people, the people's stone. Eventually, Casey said it would be called the mighty terrible crystal because of its misuse, and people's memory of it is just causing all these volcanic eruptions. And so another piece here I want to bring in is this whole thing about apotheum, which we bring in on this show. And I'm going to spell that one out too. It's APOTHEUM. And this is, it's basically, you could say it's a made-up word because I put it together based on seeing it in different documents at different times. It's not a word you can look up in the dictionary, but I've actually found references to it in older, much older documents from the Middle Ages. But I think, and there are variations on spellings. Apothum is a math theorem. Apophium, A-P-O-P-H, has a pharmaceutical reference. Apotheum, and the way I've put it across, is this kind of physics negating reality, and this is why I bring in the UFO file on this. We know in so many of the UFO stories what happens is all physics of physical reality, the universal laws start failing. People start walking through walls and things of this nature. This sounds very much like the ability of the Atlanteans to go through things. So it's a matter-dissolving kind of environment. The thing about the UFO file and why it causes blackouts and plants won't grow and time disappears, there's the whole time factor with abductees, is because there's a utilization there of this apotheum, and this is why the secrecy is so heavy around it, much more so than just the revelation that there are other beings out there in the universe. As a matter of fact, the CIA seems so anxious to reveal that now so they can reveal their kind of fake AI alien. Everyone, you're watching the Dark Journalist Show. This is X Series 110 on 10/10/21, and we're going deep here on Amelius in the hot zone, Levata, Atlantean, Egypt secret. We're going to be taking your questions in the second half of the program. Miss Olivia, what's going on out there?
Wendy Eder wants to know, are the mystery schools in a race to acquire lost X technology in a race ahead of an anticipated Earth-changing event?
There's no question that both the government, the mystery schools, you have to understand, the secret societies are also certain types of mystery schools, and so they're operating on a very different ethical basis. But they share the same knowledge as the kind of good groups do. So you have a problem there where they can predict these things that are incoming, whether it's astronomical problems or pole shifts or whatever. So the loose answer to your question is yes. The mystery schools in general, in my opinion, over the past 150 years, if you really track the history and don't take it as fragmentary things like, hey, this group popped up here, but you really look and you thread that needle from the periods when there was this huge craze and the Fox sisters came out doing this mediumistic thing, and Abraham Lincoln got into using Emma Britton as a spokesperson. And Emma Britton was the person who founded, along with Helena Blavatsky, the Theosophical Society. So there's deep knowledge on the esoteric side around the brotherhoods and the mystery schools on the political side. When Rudolf Steiner talks about it, of course, Steiner's the mystic and scholar who started anthroposophy, which is spiritual science. He says, look, it's hand in glove mystery schools with the political system in America. This is the period that he's talking about. That's the early 20th century. If anything, I would imagine that degree of integration has continued at a very fast clip. So you have mystery schools on both sides, right-hand side and left-hand side, very deep in the political process at this period in time. So no question that there's an acceleration that we've been involved in, and I would say that acceleration took place immediately after this 58 to 98 period that Casey had identified. Let's find out something old about the mystery schools. And I want to say this about Steiner's work. I think he put the most on the record about the schools and how they operate. I think that this was very bold, and I think it subjected him to a lot of obstacles, including the destruction of Gurdian, the first one, by the Nazis, which really took a major toll because he spent something like a decade putting it together. And also his own subsequent death by poison, which is not very heavily reported in his bio because he wanted it that way, in fact. But Steiner was poisoned, and the poison killed him over the course of about a week. And he made it known that he didn't want this to be, his epitaph, which is spiritual leader comes in, does all this stuff, and then everyone just knows, oh, this guy got poisoned, So he wanted the work to stand on its own. But there's great obstacles, and I find that the establishment, in fact, still likes to go after the Waldorf schools. For example, in relation to this injection thing, they're going after them very heavily because they're known to think very independently. So watch that one play out, because these things are playing out on a very large scale. It's so funny because I mentioned this to you earlier, which is that when you look at the things that we've brought forward on, during episodes of the X series. Now, the X series has run about 3.5 years. I've been doing dark journalism for about a decade, but during that point of the X series, if you go back and look just at like 2018 episodes, you're going to find all of the stuff that we're putting out there, the Nixon-Trump stuff, and all these other things. And this is not to say, well, we're so great because we're so ahead of the curve. It's just that the information is there. All we have to do is work together to network that awareness, just like we do in the ideas from in that great back and forth that we have, and with the questions that Olivia does and all the rest. It's one big conversation that goes back, and that's how we can say to ourselves, oh, you know what, that thing that came out about these Nixon letters to Trump setting him up to become president in 2016, and how the New York Post reports it now openly in the public, and it's just very well known. Well, since we had that discussion in 2018, we can get a handle on these things before the larger public has the ability to access it. This is kind of a crucial thing in an environment like this, where the timing becomes very important around these revelations. Okay, Steiner brought forward anthroposophy. As I said, Besant really brought him forward, I have to say. I don't know if she always gets the credit on that, but she saw, he already was a genius and had some books out. But he was largely marginalized, in that period, and it is Besant who sees his genius and thinks, aha, he can run the German branches of Theosophy, and she gives him that role, and he's sensational. So he also had a great respect for her kind of what he referred to as her noble purpose. So even though he felt she got manipulated later, they had a very good working relationship for 2 or 3 years. That, I think, is crucial because we have to understand that Theosophy and Anthroposophy are the same. They have the same root, even though what happens to Theosophy is they bend it around to the Eastern concepts and the Eastern schools, pushing it too far in that direction. And it is, in fact, the Western mystery tradition that was already set up by the East, The Eastern tradition, since 3000 BC, had been giving us that setup for the Western mystery tradition to become in full bloom in this period. So Theosophy, by originally getting that with Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine, and then bending the entire thing towards the Eastern school and forgetting Western mystery tradition, was basically like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, we had a great team last year, and now let's have a great team this year. And it's, you know, they want the same team to win the World Series over and over again, but at a certain point you have to pass it to the other team. Now, sports metaphors abound tonight. A little bit on Steiner and who he refers to as Manu. This is Emilius, and Manu is actually a title. So it's this great initiate he's referring to is in fact Emilius, and then we're going to go into Casey's version of Emilius. Everyone, you're watching Dark Journalist Show. It's X-Series episode 110, going deep on Emilius in the hot zone. Okay, quote. When a seer whose spiritual eye is opened so that he knows how to read the fine script of the Akasha Chronicle, looks back into the spiritual worlds, he discovers the sites from which the culture and all spiritual life of those times emanated. Our souls can discover the sites where the masters and their disciples assembled in the mystery schools of that time. There were many such mystery centers on the ancient Atlantean continent, and they differed from those of today and were given a different name. They were not just churches and not just schools, but rather a combination of both. This is crucial. Gurdjieff brings this forward as well. They give demonstrations. So in church, there's worship, and there's listening to the priest or the preacher, and there's Bible study and things of this nature in Sunday school. But these are demonstration schools. In fact, Gurdjieff refers to them as schools of demonstration and exhibition. They show techniques, they show the things while they're doing this. This is a crucial thing for us to keep in mind, not just to think of them as, somebody's going to church or somebody's going to school to study. They bring them together so that the spiritual element then encompasses the learning and brings them both together, something which is really lacking, I think, in this period of time. Okay, those who searched for truth could find both religion and wisdom in the mystery schools. Here, religion and wisdom were one. Using a modern word, we can characterize the concept of these cultic centers, the mystery schools, by the term Atlantean oracles. This is the first mystery schools. This is the name given to them by the European mystery schools, but originally they were called something entirely different. It doesn't say what they were called. I wish that he had. In the Atlantean oracles and their centers of wisdom, spiritual life was differentiated in the same way that external knowledge in the areas of trade and professions are subdivided. There were various branches of spiritual investigation and occult wisdom in ancient Atlantis, but everything in those times depended on different conditions. Wisdom varied from one oracle to another according to the capacities of the human beings and their external environment. A connection existed between certain human capacities and certain planets. That is, certain mystical occult capacities were connected with special planets. Therefore, in the Atlantean continent, we should distinguish between oracles of the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So these mystery schools were set up directly on astrology. So, they went through the 12 houses and they had the 7 planetary bodies that they used in that period. So they would have someone who's an oracle of Venus, someone who's an oracle of Mercury, and so on. This is very important because the characteristics and the information that they're getting have to do directly with the realm, which gets pretty cosmological. Our present capacities developed out of the cosmos, as did the Earth, and they are in each case tied to different planets and their influences. On Atlantis, people who were suited to develop this or that cognitive capacity were chosen from the population and assigned to one of the 7 oracles. So they had the advanced initiates look out, you know, and they would grab somebody, you know, they would look out and see like a Gigi Young and say, she needs to be the Venus Oracle. You know, so they would plug these people into the different schools. People were chosen who were suited to develop this or that cognitive capacity were chosen from that population and assigned to one of the 7 oracles. Of the 7 oracles which were named after the 7 planets in ancient Atlantis, the Sun Oracle stood out from all the others, but next to it, the Vulcan Oracle prepared itself in secrecy for its future task. Okay, so Vulcan, again, comes up in all of these Steiner presentations. And Vulcan, like the 8th sphere, is a sphere that's in development. It's not a planet that we can see and point to directly. It's something that is coming about. And so much of the kind of cosmic shootout that's going on right now between the harmonic forces, which is the dark astral side that Steiner identifies, has to do with what's supposed to happen with humanity spiritually. Is it's supposed to spiritually evolve through this warmth of Vulcan emanating with the solar powers. And then that creates something called New Jupiter. This is the kind of cosmological reference that Steiner is giving us. That is New Jerusalem. That's what the religious traditions are based on. And so that becomes the new Earth. You know? So New Jupiter is the next stage. And what the harmonic forces are doing are trying to lock us into a false evolutionary step called the 8th sphere. And the 8th sphere, again, something like virtual reality. So that's just kind of a fundamental thing.
Wait, can I rewind? Okay, so I'm a little distracted by the chat, so I just wanted to ask you. So Vulcan is could you just clarify that? It's something that is being constructed with our consciousness, with our transmuted karma. How does that work? That's something good, right? We want to create this. And how does it relate to New Jupiter?
This is the interesting thing. It's that there are spheres in development. So just as in Steiner's cosmology, there's spheres of things that have happened before, like the old, these are steps of evolution that have taken place. Vulcan is a future step in evolution that's in preparation. And so the thing that's being set up there to block it is the 8th sphere development. These are both, we can't think of them as hard, solid substance places. There is something that kicks around in the 19th century and before about the idea that there's going to be a planet called Vulcan. And eventually Pluto is discovered and a lot of that goes away, but somebody else had theorized that there was an actual other planet out there, very often referred to as Planet X. And so we know that there's something else that's going out there that's a solid body. In reference to Vulcan and the 8th sphere, these are realms, and they're spherical realms that are in development, which will become physicalized. But at this point, they're almost in like an etheric stage. And so when Vulcan comes up, that's one of them that he's doing. But he references here, you have to look for clues in Steiner's work where he says it's being developed in secret. Why, you have all those realms already and all the secretiveness. Why is Vulcan already secret? The Sun Oracle stood out from all the others, but next to it, the Vulcan Oracle prepared itself in secrecy for its future task. So there's a lot of interesting secrets here. When you do things in secret, it's so you don't get interfered with. And this is going to become important when we consider the cosmology of it. But yeah, that's a good point about it. How does it play into it? I'm going to read a little more of this.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Luke Walker wants to know. He said Steiner said archangels are in a Vulcan state, and humans will be in that state in the future too.
Yes.
So
that's true. This is what is being. This is what they're shooting for, which is that humanity rises up to that point and holds that ethereal warmth. That is this kind of gift of the solar beings, and they connect that with this kind of mystery, or the esoteric Christian. So actually, as I get into this a little bit further, we're going to understand it because there's a big crisscross with Emilius with this. Okay, so all of you have heard of the time when the sun separated from the earth. This is again Steiner addressing his pupils. This is crucial, which is the moon and the sun, according to Steiner, both came out of the earth and have to do with humanity's development. When the sun left and then the solar beings left with it, that's when Ahriman, who was also evolutionary piece, became part of the evolution of the earth and kind of dominated humanity there. This is the problem, really a kind of fundamental problem in all this, which is there was a period where the moon was present in the earth, not outside of it as a satellite, but in the earth, and the sun was gone and the solar beings had emanated from it. This is all in the Steiner cosmology. So what happens is we develop a kind of unusual attachment with Ahriman, and Ahriman starts to seep into our evolutionary process. That's when that gets in there. So when we go into this, we're finding ourselves, we have to understand, there's a lot of theories about the moon and about the sun. So when we work directly off anthroposophy, we're just going to work with as he has presented, whether or not we think the moon came out of the earth. After the moon, too, had left, the earth was able to realize its destination of becoming the abode of humanity. If the sun alone had influenced the earth, the latter would have gone into such a rapid development that human beings would have become old soon after birth. By contrast, if our earth had only been under the influence of the moon, human beings would have stiffened and become mummies. Think of that. We're seeing a lot of that right now. Development would have been too slow, and their bodies would have reached a state of rigidity. However, through a wise guiding force, sun and moon maintained a balance in the external influence they exert on the earth, and this enabled the earth and human beings to develop at a speed suitable to them. The beings of Mars, Mercury, Venus, and so on, who did not need the forces that had left with the moon and earth for their development, departed with the sun to take up their own abode. So a little more on this. During the ancient Atlantean epoch, the adepts of the Sun Oracle had been initiated into the deeds of this lofty sun being, the Great Initiate. This is when we're going to get into Manu here, who is Emilius. The Great Initiate was the leader of this highest oracle, had been initiated in the most comprehensive ways into these mysteries. The entire ancient Atlantean, and as we shall see, into the post-Atlantean culture, proceeded from him, the Manu. So it's like saying the Christ. This is the position.
I'm master.
As this leader of the Sun Oracle is called, the Manu. Although the name doesn't really matter all that much, did not choose the main representatives of the post-Atlantean culture from scholars and scientists. The people who were endowed with spiritual and psychic knowledge, who in those days were approximately comparable to the scientists and scholars of our time, they weren't chosen. Rather, plain people who had begun gradually to lose their kind of scientific and scholarly abilities. Basically, the kind of average people who were not part of a scientific elite there in Atlantis. These are the people he wanted to work with. And he was looking for people who had the full consciousness of self, the ability to address the I in oneself. The great Manu, this is back to the presentation again. The great Manu gathered about him those who were able to function intellectually, and not the magi, but those who absorbed and developed the rudiments of arithmetic. Very unusual. They were the despised who knew nothing in the opinion of the leading people, and in this they were not unlike the Theosophists today. Yet it was they with whom the great Manu journeyed to the sanctuary in Asia from which post-Atlantean culture was to emanate. So this is really interesting. what happens is Manu, who is Amelius, he decides what we're going to do is we're going to take the people who are not sort of the elite magicians of Atlantis. I want to work with people who are kind of the outcasts. And there's something about those groups that for some reason, the ones that he's selecting, according to Steiner, are good at arithmetic. And this is important for developing the sense of individual I. There's something strange there. He's dropping a hint. Why arithmetic? Think about it. Numbers, mathematics. Something strange about Manu just saying, I want the mathematicians out of this plan. So he says, now the great initiate took something very valuable with him when he journeyed from ancient Atlantis to Europe. To accomplish this, he had, let me put it this way, traveled to and expected the other oracles. You all know that in the case of ordinary people, the etheric body separates from the astral body and the ego soon after death, and gradually dissolves in the universal ether. The same happens with the astral body after a certain time. But this law is sometimes broken in the interest of spiritual economy. This is what happened in the case of the etheric bodies of the 7 greatest initiates, who were the leaders of the ancient Atlantean oracles. They continued to have their astral bodies. What does it mean when we say work on ourselves? It means that we purify the etheric body and the astral body. Now, once purified, the spiritualized etheric and astral bodies do not dissolve after death, but are preserved in accordance with the law of spiritual economy. They can be used as a resource. They can be drawn upon. So when we talk about ascended masters, people are like, how can Saint Germain be 800 years old? It's because he has actualized himself to such an ability to create this astral shell, which is very comparable to the physical shell, and appear anywhere he wants and take part in any conversation or any event, or whatever it happens to be, and seem totally human. So Saint Germain is, we see him in 1600, we see him in 1700, we see him in the 19th century. Actually, some of the Theosophists claim that they see Saint Germain. So how, is he an immortal? The idea is that these people, once they overcome their physical life, are able to project themselves. And if they want to stay here and continue to interact, they have the ability to do that. This is a very crucial thing that Steiner gets across. Everyone, you're watching the Dark Journalist X series. We're here in episode 110 to go deep into Amelius and the Rata secret. And we need that Steiner foundation in order to do it. That's what we just got. Keep that in mind as we move forward here to understand kind of mystery revelations coming directly out of the legacy of these mysteries. We're going to be taking your question in the second half of the program, and Miss Olivia is already putting those together so you can ask them. I'm looking forward to interacting with the ideas from tonight. There's so many things flying around. What do you got?
They're all really great questions. So just back up with bulk increment. John Mondry says it's the next phase of human development. Earth will eventually die off in approximately 6,000 years. New Jerusalem will be on Vulcan.
Yeah. This is very interesting, and of course, it goes along with what Steiner has been putting out there. We've heard a lot about, even in traditional religion, you have purgatory, you have hell, you have heaven, and all the rest of it. And the 8th sphere has a sound like purgatory has a little bit of a resonance with the 8th sphere, in my opinion. But the heavily, the technology agent of the astral side with Ahriman, that brings us, we're in a technological age, so it sort of brings us to a different level of looking at this stuff than, say, they had access to, even though they could look down the road in theosophical times. When they're coming forward in 1875, they're looking down the road and they're saying, oh boy, scientific materialism is covering up humanity's understanding of the spiritual nature, and it's cutting them off. The industrialization is cutting them off. That's back then. Okay, if you look at what we have now, you have people who are almost completely devoid of any consideration around anything spiritual or any true contact. Like, it's difficult for them to get in contact with their conscience because it's covered over by other things. It's latent. It's latent in everybody, in fact. And everyone has the ability to do it, but you have to be reminded, and this is why I think there's such a war. This is difficult because there's a war on religious groups, there's a war on Christianity in America. And however we feel about how Christianity has been used as a big business thing, or the moral majority, or the great judgments associated with it, nonetheless, in fact, it maintains the fundamental identification with Christ. And this is a big problem for the darker groups that are coming in to kind of control humanity and herd them like sheep into this 8th sphere reality. Because even the recognition around, we have a lot of schools and places where you can't pronounce, you can't say prayers. A lot of them you can't even say the Pledge of Allegiance, right? So they need to kind of outdo the identity of these Christians, because those Christians will never submit themselves to kind of a mark of the beast style system. Now, when I was growing up, when you'd hear things like Jerry Falwell and stuff, you thought it was ridiculous. And it's, even as a kid, I thought that stuff was idiotic. And, even if you believed in something that the people would say, you wouldn't believe in who they were, and we had televangelists and all that kind of stuff. Everyone remembers this. But nonetheless, and something like the Mark of the Beast would be like a joke, like some Christian Bible thumper thinks that the Mark of the Beast is coming. But fundamentally, if you study it from a mystery school perspective, when John of Patmos has that vision in Revelation, sees it, he sees that people won't be able to transact without accepting the mark. This is, I think, very deep mystery realization that has to be looked at entirely outside of the kind of Bible thumper way of doing it. What it is, it's a great realization. So the information is there. Have people taken that too far? We've seen it, Christian culture being used to kind of justify all kinds of things, and the takeover of America and South America, and Cortez and all that. It was all, hey, those godless groups, we have to go in there with our great God thing and take their gold. So we've seen it abused. However, even in spite of all that, the importance of that Christian recognition in Christians in America against this thing, the scientific materialism, which is worship us at the altar of this injection and all the rest of it. There is the clash there, because just the mere recognition of the Christian following and mentality sets up a clash with this very, very pernicious control grid that's trying to come in and sort of reduce humanity through the scientific materialism to projecting their consciousness in a box, which is actually not possible, because humanity and its consciousness emanates from a chakra system, which is embedded in their endocrine system. And those people study the mystery science around that. They know it very well. So this whole thing about, hey, I'm going to be able to project my consciousness, won't this be great? That's just an invitation to get sucked into this 8th sphere thing. So that gives us, I think, a little bit of a background on that. Okay, so Steiner has given us this information that this initiate, Manu, saw that the destruction of Atlantis was coming and took with him this group. I want to get into some of the Emilius readings from Edgar Casey and sort of cross-reference the two characters, because Emilius, in fact, is identified as Adam in Casey readings, but there's kind of a mystical twist to it, because he says as Emilius as Adam. So again, what we have to remember is Adam is a station. It's a station of humanity coming in to the Earth. So Adam is not just, hey, there's Adam the person. Adam is 5 senses, the 5 races, all at once, happening in the Casey cosmology we're looking at now. Okay, let's get a couple of basics down on Casey's version. Before we go there, I want to put in a zinger from Cosmic Memory, which is actually called Atlantis and Lemuria, and it's cited in the Casey readings. But I think this is important, and I always recommend Cosmic Memory. It's kind of the most accessible and deepest book in this time. That and Knowledge of Higher Worlds. Okay. Now he's talking about reading the Akasha Chronicle, which is something that Blavatsky and these others could do. And supposedly now, looking back, Plato and other people could do it. They could put themselves into that state, and the Akasha Chronicle is just something that records everything that has ever happened to it, and you tune into it and you watch things like a movie, basically. When one follows the Akasha Chronicle, it does indeed appear that in the first Lemurian period, later physical man, because of his double sex, was a totally different being from that which one today would designate as a man. This is crucial.